Okay, so we're going to start today on exercise 223, going back to your retreat file. So last class we did kind of an introduction to lighting in that separate scene. Today we're going to start bringing those lights into the scene. I'm still breaking it into pieces though, so the lights that we're going to do today are going to be on, but it's not the night render yet. So we're going to do a daytime interior render, which is helpful to have lights, but it's not. I mean, you could technically do an interior render without the lights on in the first place. But I'm going to put the lights in, we'll turn the lights on, we'll see some basic lighting and whatever. And then next class, we'll do the interior render again, but this time it'll be the night version. So we'll convert all the environment over to night as we go forward. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Rhino. Now remember, when we start thinking about these blocks and we start inserting the blocks, there's two components. There's the light fixture itself that has to come in as a block, and then there's the light that's in V-Ray that has to come in. The block probably should go into your house file or your retreat file, and the light, the V-Ray light, is going to end up in your master site file. So they're in two different places, so we have to kind of work with both files simultaneously. So I'm going to go ahead and start by opening my retreat file, assuming I can find it here. How convenient, right? Where did I save it? For being the person who's always focused on organization, you would think that I would keep better track of where this was. Let me replace all the existing materials here, and we'll open it up. There it is. So this is the file that I'm going to put the geometry of the lights into. I'm going to block reference those into this file. At the same time, I want to open the site file itself. Now, I want two versions of Rhino open at the same time so I can jump back and forth. If you're in Rhino, and you've probably discovered this by now, and you go to File, Open, it will close this file and open the other file. So the way around that is to open another copy of Rhino and to have two windows working at the same time. And I think it's useful for when we start to play around with these ones. The lights are being inserted in one. We can flip back and forth to the site and see what's going on there. So let me go ahead and open that one up. It's possible I picked the wrong file here, so bear with me. Well, I guess while I'm waiting for that to open, I can jump back to my retreat here. And I want to think here about where those light fixtures belong. And I'll start with just the basic can lights, the first light that I created, because it's just some ambient light that can go into these rooms. We can work through a variety of views, but as we start to get into the interior here, sometimes it's useful to switch from your 28 millimeter to like an 18. And when you switch to 18, you just get a little bit wider view of what's going on inside. When we do the rendering of the interior, we're going to switch to 18 anyway. But just even to work in, this is a lot of times more helpful. So I'm going to go ahead now and go to Edit, Blocks, Insert Block Instance. And I'm going to go find the can light that I created last class. So I'll go into my resources. I saved it in my blocks and into my lighting. There's the 4-inch can light. And we'll go ahead and bring that in. I'll say OK. There it is. Remember, it's a linked file as a reference. I'll say OK again. And we'll go ahead and replace the materials. And I'm going to try to snap it to that corner point right there. I'm going to turn back on my snaps. They were disabled. And I'll snap it to right there in the corner. That's just going to get me at the right height of the ceiling. Then I'll switch into my top view because it's a lot easier to see this light in the top view. And I'll go ahead and move it. And let's say at 18 inches, comma 18 inches. Oops. Apparently I did that wrong. We'll just do it in. There's one. There's two. All right, so I just moved it out into the room. I can then copy it. Let me turn on ortho here for a second. We'll do it 4 feet. Maybe another one at 8 feet. Like that. And then maybe in this way, 4 feet. And then 8 feet. Something like that. So I've got some lights along my walls. If I wanted to adjust the spacing, maybe I should. Whatever, you guys get the idea. So I have those in this particular room. Maybe I want to take these same lights and put them into this room and maybe the room upstairs. So I'll select them, and then when I copy, I'll copy from that same point in the corner on the ceiling, and we'll go upstairs, hopefully. There we are, in the upstairs, and we'll drop those lights in upstairs. There they are. And let's see if we can't put some in this back room here. About like that. Looks like that one's a little bit close. Let's move it away from the wall a little bit more. Even these out a little bit. Maybe go 6 inches there. Something like that. We could copy this one more time. Whatever, I'm throwing some lights in. Okay, so now I have those lights installed, and they're ready. Obviously, I have to go to my other scene, but I might also want to start thinking about what the furnishings are going to look like inside. So inside, it's more than just the basic materials for flooring and ceiling and that sort of thing. Sometimes I want to show some furniture, and you guys all made a table and chairs. You're more than welcome to use those. You may decide that they're too ugly and you don't want to use them. That's up to you. At this point, it's fair game to search for stuff online, 3D models. The Flying Architecture has a great set of free couches and miscellaneous furniture items. You're more than welcome to use any of those should you want to. Some you have to pay for, some are free. You have to kind of look through and browse. I believe this one's free. Not that I want to furnish my my site in, well, I should have logged in first. Anyway, I'm sure I have an account. Well, you guys don't need to see me do that. I have a couple ones already downloaded. I don't need the IKEA sofa that bad. You may have to create a free account to do it. The one that I have available already, I think, is the Yuki chair, this one. So I already have this one downloaded, so you can drop that one in. You guys look around, pick some furniture for yourselves. Obviously, you could make the furniture if you wanted to, but I'm not requiring that you make your own. The building is the important part, etc. So before I drop that chair into my scene, however, I want to make sure that I can open it, and I like the layer structure because I'm going to use it as a block reference. So you always open it first. It also helps to verify that the lights are in the correct location, or excuse me, the materials are in their correct location, the names are all set, etc. So let me open a third instance of Rhino here. And I'll go to File and then Open. And there's that Yuki chair. I'll open that. And there it is. I want to look at my layers here. And obviously, I've already opened this file. I've already corrected it. But I renamed it so that it's Yuki chair. And there's a couple layers that are represented. I'd also go into Materials here and make sure that the materials all load. So I'll check by hitting the preview button on each material. So the chrome loads just fine. The leather looks like it loads just fine, so that's good. The steel mat, I don't know what this is used for, but we'll confirm that this loads just fine. Good. So all three of those materials are loading correctly. If they weren't, I would have to adjust that as well. I'll go ahead and save this file and then jump over into my base file here, and I'll go to File, or excuse me, Edit, Blocks, Insert Block Instance. And this time I'm going to browse for that chair. So there's the Yuki chair. There it is. I'll say Open. I'll say OK. It's a link and a reference. I'll say OK again. And I'm going to drop this chair in, hopefully at the ground level. So I'll put it there. And then I need to look at it, and it looks like it's at the ground level. So that's good. I do need to move it and rotate it and get it in position here. So I'll look in the top view. We'll move. Maybe like that. Let's rotate. Maybe I want a second one. Something like that. And if I were to switch over into my perspective view here, let me make this big for a second, and drop into that lower room. Oh, there's my two chairs, for example. Okay? So go through and add those kinds of things, because that's going to help your design mature, etc. Find those online. Once I have this ready, I'm going to save my base file. So there it is. And I'm going to move over to my site file. Oh, I picked the wrong one. Give me a second to see if I can find the correct one. It's supposed to be in that folder. Oh, you know what? I bet the syncing deleted my file. That's probably what happened to it. So give me just a second, because I want to get the same file that I was working with here. Let me see if I can recover it, and I'll be right back with you. OK, so I apologize for that. I actually was more organized than I thought. I had a folder for the assignment, and I was looking in the exercises. There goes me trying to be organized, right? Anyway, so once I've updated that Rhino file and I've put these pieces in, so for example, I could copy these and I could drop them up to the next layer or up above into the room above. There we go. I'm going to save my work. Then I'll go back to my master site file, which is here. And when we do that and go to Edit, Blocks, Block Manager, we're going to see that my retreat base is newer. So we'll go ahead and update that. Let's go ahead and replace all the existing materials. Perfect. Block updated successfully. And so now I need to start thinking about, what's this rendering going to look like from the inside? What do I want to see as part of my view here? So we'll see, yep, there's my chairs, there's my lights, all of that's good. I still have to put the lights into the scene. But before I get into that, I want to think about, what's the right view of my particular rendering. And so, for example, this room here, if I were to render through that, I'd see the stairs, and I'd see some interest. So this might not be a bad view to start with. I could start simple and just pick one of the rooms looking out the windows. That would be OK too. So there's flexibility here. When you start to set this up, remember that your lens length, if you change it to be 18, you're going to see a much wider view of the house. If you guys watch like HGTV at home or those kinds of things, notice when they're in the house, they always shoot with really wide angle lenses. And so you can see more of the room. Same thing here. We're inside, it's a small room. We shoot with a wide angle, we can see more of the room, even though the sides are a little distorted. So you can set up your view right? If you're zooming in and zooming out and it's jumping a little bit too much, remember we can work with the camera itself. I can go to set view, set camera, show camera, then switch to one of my other views. There's my camera. There's the point of my camera. I can move that point so that it's right back up against that wall, nice and tight to the wall, get the biggest view possible of my scene. I could adjust the camera if I wanted to, what exactly I'm looking at, those kinds of things. That can help. I could also adjust the height. So we can look right here at the height. Looks like my height really isn't the same height as a person, so I could actually move this up and or move it down so that it's a little bit more on line with what the height of a person would be. So you can play around with those kinds of settings as well as you start to set this out. That might have been a little bit high. So maybe I'll drop that back down a little bit. But remember, this is all done in one of the other views, not the perspective view that you're representing. Once I have a view that I like, I'm going to make sure that I go to Set View and then Named Views, and I'm going to save this view as Interior View 1, for example. And sometimes when you're setting these up, it's not a bad idea to play around with multiple different views. So maybe I do want that stair view. Maybe something like that. The camera should still be shown here. So let's move that back just a bit. A little bit that way. Oops, sorry, didn't want to do that one. Picked the wrong camera point. Go back to set view. There we go. Move that one more time. Need to adjust the height so that I'm not so short here. Move. All right, so maybe I'm happy with that view. And this takes time to figure out what the right view is. I'll go ahead and click on that little triangle. I'll go to Set View, Named Views, and this would be Interior View 2. The advantage of multiple views like this is you can decide which one's turning out, because they might not turn out. You might not like a particular view. So play around with it until you get your views nice and established. So I have those set up. The next piece is I need to put those V-Ray lights into the scene. And so I'm going to go back to my layers here. I have my environment. I have my blocks layer, nice and organized. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'll call this layer V-Ray Lights. And it's helpful if we separate these out by types of light. So if I put a light in that's for a lamp or something, I'll make a new layer for that. These are going to be the can lights. So I'll put a layer for can lights. Let me make that the active layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and create the spotlights that I'll use. So I'll click on the Create Spotlights button. I'll start with my first light, hopefully right there. Let me turn on my snaps here. See if I can get it to start at the center of one of these. Come on. Sometimes the snapping is the more difficult part. I may have to make some adjustments afterward. Yeah, it didn't snap correctly. So let me switch my view into a 28 again and see if that helps me. Yep, there you go. Now it's picking it correctly. So my diameter is going to be 2 feet, or my radius will be 1 foot. So one more time here. There you go. My radius is 1 foot. My height is going to be 1 foot as well. So there it is. Oops, looks like I put it in on an angle. Try it one more time. ortho, there it is. Now remember, this has to be below the light fixture.
Do we have to do that with the light of the thing?
Yes. So I'll have it so that it's below the light fixture. I'm going to come over and make my adjustments to the light first. So first thing, we're going to enable it so that it's on. OK, here we go. I knew it would happen to me eventually. So I got a bad bulb. Remember I was telling you that this stuff would happen? Right? So it happens randomly. OK? So this particular bulb, if I look down here, see how there's a bunch of zeros? I can tell by quickly glancing at it something's wrong. So we'll just get rid of that one and pretend it didn't exist. And we'll try that one again. So let me come in and create a spotlight. I'll do it again, maybe. My diameter is going to be, or my radius will be 1 foot. My height is going to be 1 foot. There we go. And it gave me another one. Oh, it's being annoying to me. You gotta love it when this stuff happens to me, right? So let me go ahead and save this, and I'm going to open it again and see if I can get it to fix its problem here. All right, so let me try that again and see if I can create a spotlight this time and have it work. Yep, works now. So, like I said, it happens. So, closing down Rhino and reopening my file seemed to make a difference. Let's move this up a bit. I want to line this up. Oh, looks like I did it on an angle. One more time. I'll do it one more time. One foot. We want to be going 1 foot. I didn't have ortho on. That's why I was struggling to get it straight up and down. There it is. Let me move this down a bit. Notice before I copied my light a bunch of times, I want to make sure that all the settings are set up correct for it and that it works. So a couple more moves. I need it to be right on top of where my fixture is, but below so that it's not intersecting any geometry. Then we'll go through and do my settings. So first off, I need the color, 255, 214. 170. Say OK. My intensity, I'm going to set it at 40. And my units are going to be set in watts. My decay is going to be inverse square. And the rest of the options are all just fine as part of it. That should be on my can lights layer, which it currently is. And now I can go through and I can copy it a bunch more. I'm going to disable all of my snaps to get it just approximate so that I can click without having to worry about snapping here. I'll even turn off ortho. Now it is possible that even though these lights are all working right now, or they were working, it's possible that when I'm creating these copies, I could even get a bad bulb. Yes. It's less likely to happen, but it still technically can happen. So I'm just trying to warn you guys ahead of time. So in these lights here, they're not at the correct height just yet. So I'm going to have to go through and modify them. So I'll take all of these, and I'm going to then look at them in elevation view. There they are floating. We'll move them down so that they're below. Then I'm going to copy them back up so that they line up with the lights that are above. So now I've set up the lights in the scene. There's a few more things that may be relevant that sometimes people like to do. I've found that sometimes people like to put wall art on the walls, paintings or whatever. Sometimes people like to put their own drawings on the walls. And it tends to add something to interior rendering. So all you really need to do this, you have the skills already, is to go back to your base file. And I already have some in, sorry, come on now. I already have a couple of these surfaces that have been made out. Essentially, you need to create the canvas to project your drawing onto, which is rather easily. It's a rectangle, so to speak. If you wanted it to be a framed piece of art, you could do that. And then you need to create a material for this that is whatever the piece of art would be. It's just like creating a piece of concrete or something. So if I wanted to do that, I could, for example, go into Creative Commons and let's try just art. You never know what's going to happen. Right? So let's say I really liked this. Maybe not. Come on, Flickr. Actually, this one's kind of fun. Let's do this one. Come on, Flickr. Clearly, I'm having bad computer luck today, right? Anyway, I'll let this start to download. Then I'm going to go start getting the material ready. I'll go into my material editor. I'm going to create a brand new material. I'll right click. You can actually see that I have some arts materials already assigned in this scene. I'll go to create material. It'll be a standard material. Call this art. I think I'm on art 5. And I'll say OK. Then under the diffuse color, remember, this is where we go find that file. So I'll click on the M. I'll go to text bitmap. And I need to go find it. Let's see if Flickr decided to load it by now. Barely. Boy, it's slow. Let's do a Google image search. No, that's kind of ridiculous. Oh, I hate Pinterest. We're not doing the Pinterest. Should probably do a larger than search. Hold on a second. Larger than. Sure, that one's a good one. So let me go ahead and view the image. Let me save the image as. I have a folder for my art, so I'll go ahead and add this one to it. Let me save it right there. Perfect. Now I'll go back to my Rhino here. Remember, it's in my retreat file that I'm doing this. And I'm going to go find, oops. have it open. There it is. I'm going to go find that file. I'll go into Resources, V-Ray, V-Ray Materials, Art, and there it is. I'll say Open. There's my preview of it. I'll say OK. If I look at my material there it is. So now it's just a matter of applying that material onto the canvas where I want it to be. I already have materials on these, so let me make a new canvas down here in this view. So I'll do a box. I'll say this is at 2 inches, comma, 4 feet by 4 feet. Move it vertically. Let's go up a bit. Sometimes it's useful to just do this in one of the side views so you can see what you're doing. So move it about like that. I'll move it over about like that. Now I need to apply my material to this. So I'll go to Materials, and I'm not going to put this on its own layer. I'll just put the material directly on the selection here. But it's not a bad idea to check my texture mapping. It's probably reasonable the way it is. But let me go in and view it in rendered mode for a second. And there it is. If I wanted to, I could apply a box map to it. It seems reasonable the way it is right now. We'll see when I do the rendering if I like it. OK, so let me switch back out to shaded mode. I'll go ahead and save this. And then I'll jump back to my master site here. I'll go to Edit, Blocks, Block Manager. My linked file is newer. Let's update that. We'll replace the existing materials. And then we'll close once it's done. Now, I already have the exterior done. It's ready to go. I would recommend that when you switch to the interior, go ahead and turn off things like the bunch grass because you're not seeing it. So no reason to have all those extra objects for V-Ray to have to worry about. So we'll turn those off. My view is then set up. Let me go to Set View. There it is. I've got my view set up. I've got my light set up. It's now time to render. Remember, when we do the rendering, it's always worthwhile to go in and change the size down on the first render. So I'll drop the height to maybe 100. So we can do a test render. Also, you're probably going to start wanting to use the distributed rendering because we're starting to get to the point where these are going to take a lot more time to render. So I would recommend turning that on and turning on your hosts. I'll go back through that in a second, but for the quick render here, I'm going to turn it off. And I'll go ahead and do a little quick render and see what happens. And remember, this is about basic settings. Do I like the settings? Am I getting the right amount of light? That kind of thing. So I can see from this little preview that I'm getting the arcs of the light, the interior light. So those are showing up the way I want. There's some sun coming through. That's pretty good. I can see down there's the painting, but the lights in the back are all working. So I'm reasonably happy. Right? This seems good. Now time to bump up the resolution, try a higher quality rendering, and see the detail. Do I like it at that point? So remember, always a small one first, and then we get big. So the idea today is that you should have an exterior render complete, or excuse me, an interior render complete of wherever you are. So as we go forward, I know it's hard because people are in different places. You're still modeling things. You're still trying to solve problems. But if you stay up reasonably close with, if I ask you for an interior rendering, you give me an interior rendering, you're not going to be too far behind down the road. So do an interior rendering, even if it's not perfect, and give me that by the end today. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so we're going to keep going with this same strategy. Next class, we'll take this and turn it into a night. So we'll do the interior night rendering. Then we'll ultimately be going outside to do the exterior night rendering. And then we'll start doing plans and elevations and sections and all that stuff of the building as well. Okay? So that's kind of where we're going. There's not too many days of class left, if you haven't noticed. Not too many weeks left either. And there's Thanksgiving break coming. So just FYI, don't panic yet.